Every fire investigator will tell you the same thing. Fire has a logic. It follows fuel, oxygen, geometry. It goes where it can go and stops where it can't. It doesn't choose. It doesn't decide. It is the most honest thing in the world. It only does what physics allows. This account is from a woman named Miriam Cole. She's 44 years old. She's a writer. She survived a house fire in Lamoille County, Vermont, on a Tuesday night in February. The fire investigation report lists the cause as undetermined. Miriam submitted this account 8 weeks after the fire. She said, "I don't expect you to believe the fire part. I barely believe it myself, and I was there. But I need someone to hear the other part, the part that wasn't the fire." I asked her what the other part was. She said, "The part that was watching me figure it out." Here's what she told me. "I woke up because of the smell. Not smoke. Not yet. Not the thick gray smoke that came later. Something beneath that. Older. The smell of heat reaching wood that hasn't been warm in a long time. If you've ever opened an attic in summer, you know the smell. Dry and dark and sealed. That's what woke me. Not an alarm. Not sound. A smell that my body recognized before my brain did." My name is Miriam Cole. I'm 44. I'm a writer, essayist, 2 books, the kind of work that requires long stretches of silence and isolation, which is why I'm in Vermont and not somewhere easier. The house was my mother's before it was mine. 1887 build, 4 bedrooms, full attic, partial basement, wood frame throughout, 7 acres. The nearest house is 1.5 miles down Garfield Road. I moved in 3 years ago after she died. I know every room, every window, every door. I've replaced the wiring twice and the plumbing once. I know where the drafts come from and which floorboards announce themselves and which stay quiet. I know the sound the backstairs door makes when it seals. A specific soft compression, like a sigh. I know the attic hatch latch because I've opened and closed it maybe 200 times and it always catches on the second press, not the first. I know this house the way you know a body you've lived in. The way you know, without checking, when something inside it has changed. There was one other thing I knew about that house. The office at the end of the second floor hallway, my office where I worked most days, had a window that opened onto the side porch roof. 8-foot drop to the yard below. I'd noticed it the first week I moved in. I'd thought, if there's ever a fire and the stairs are gone, that's the way out. I hadn't thought about it since, not once in 3 years. At 2:17 a.m. on a Tuesday in February, something inside that house had changed. I sat up in bed. The bedroom was normal, dark, cold, the Vermont cold that settles into old houses at night regardless of the heat you run. My lamp on the nightstand, my glass of water, the window showing the blue-black of a sky with snow in it. I sat still and breathed and smelled what had woken me. Then, from downstairs, from what I placed as the east end of the house, the sitting room, I heard the first sound. Not a crack, not a roar. A low, intimate sound, like paper being folded, like something small beginning. I got up, put on the lamp, put my feet in the wool slippers by the bed and opened the bedroom door. The hallway was clear, no smoke, no glow, no heat differential I could feel on my face. The hallway was exactly what it always was at 2 a.m. Cold floorboards, the faint smell of the old house, the specific silence of a building that's been standing for 130 years and has nothing to prove. I walked to the top of the stairs and looked down. The sitting room at the bottom of the stairs was on fire. Not the whole room, one area, the east corner, near the old bookcase I'd inherited along with everything else. A contained fire, low to the ground, burning in a way that seemed almost careful, like it was reading the room before committing. I went back to my bedroom, grabbed my phone, my coat, my boots. The muscle memory of the emergency protocol I'd run in my head 100 times living alone in a rural house. I called 911, told them the address. The dispatcher said 14 minutes. 14 minutes. I said, "Is there anything faster?" She said, "Ma'am, stay low and get out of the house." I went back to the hallway. The stairs were clear. The fire in the sitting room had stayed in its corner. I could see the orange edge of it from the top of the stairs, but the staircase itself was unobstructed. 14 steps to the front door. I put my hand on the banister. The banister was hot. Not warm, hot. The specific heat of metal that has been exposed to a source for long enough to conduct it through the structure. The banister was iron, original to the house, and it was hot from the bottom rail all the way up to where my hand was, at the top of the stairs. I let go. The fire in the sitting room was in the corner. The banister ran along the opposite wall. I told myself, heat travels through old materials in ways that don't follow the visible source. The banister connected to ironwork in the basement. Heat from another area, the basement maybe, something in the utility space, could conduct upward through the metal and produce exactly what I'd felt. This was true. This was a real thing that could happen. I went back through the hallway to the back stairs. The servants' stair, narrow, enclosed, running from the kitchen on the ground floor up to the second floor hallway. I'd used them 1,000 times. They came out in the kitchen, away from the sitting room, close to the back door that led to the yard and the car and the road. The back stairs door was warm on the outside. I opened it anyway. The stairwell was full of smoke. Not the thin preliminary smoke of something starting. The dense gray smoke of something that had been burning long enough to find its rhythm. I closed the door. I stood in the hallway and I did the math. Front stairs, hot banister, fire visible at the bottom. Back stairs, smoke from inside, source unknown. The second floor hallway connected both and had one other option. My office at the end of the hall, which had a window onto the side porch roof. 8-foot drop from the porch roof to the ground, snow below, manageable. I'd taken worse. I started toward the office. The hallway light went out. Not the electricity. The lamp in my bedroom, visible through the open door, was still on. The hallway overhead light, which was on a separate switch, went out, like someone had turned it off. I stopped walking. I stood in the partial dark of the hallway, lamplight from my bedroom to the left, darkness ahead where the office was, and I waited for my eyes to adjust. And in the adjusting, in that specific transition from blindness to the first shapes of things, I saw that the office door at the end of the hallway was closed. I had left it open. I went to bed at 11. I always leave the office door open. There's no reason to close it. I live alone. I had left it open. I stood in the dark hallway. The smoke from the back stairs wasn't visible yet, but I could smell it at the edges of the air. I counted 4 seconds. I walked to the office door. I felt it with the back of my hand first, the way you check for fire on the other side. Back of the hand, because a burn there is less incapacitating than a burn on the palm. The door was cool. I opened it. The office was fine. Dark, cold. My desk and shelves and the window exactly as I'd left them when I'd gone to bed at 11. I crossed to the window. unlocked it, raised the sash, cold air hitting me full in the face. The smell of snow and the absolute rural darkness outside and below me, the gray-white surface of the porch roof. I put one leg over the sill. I heard, from the direction of the closed office door behind me, a sound I recognized. A footstep. One. On the specific floorboard outside the office. The one that always announced itself going that direction. The one I'd learned to step around. You don't hear it coming back. The grain of the wood catches one way. I had heard it going toward me. I did not move for a full breath. Then I went out the window. I was on the porch roof, cold through the slippers. The snow packed on the roof surface was 2 inches deep, and I could feel each step compressing it. I moved to the edge, looked down, 8 feet to the yard below, snow-covered ground, no ice visible. I lowered myself off the edge, hanging for a moment, and dropped. Landed clean. I was standing in the yard of my house at 2:24 a.m. in February, with snow in my face and my phone in my coat pocket and the fire visible now through 2 windows on the ground floor. The sitting room to the east and the kitchen to the west. I stopped. The kitchen to the west. The back stairs had been filled with smoke, which meant the fire was in or near the back of the house. But the fire I'd seen when I first looked downstairs had been in the sitting room, the east corner. 2 points, one in the east, one in the west. I stood in the snow and I looked at both windows. The fires were the same size, not one that had spread from the other. The same size, the same color, the same stage of what I can only call development. They had started at the same time. My phone said 2:24. I had been awake for 7 minutes. The fire trucks came at 2:31. 2 engines, volunteer fire department, 4 men who moved with the speed of people who know that in Vermont in February, a wood frame house from 1887 has a survival window measured in minutes, not hours. The crew chief, a man named Dale who I'd met twice before at the general store in Johnson, came to where I was standing in the yard and asked me if anyone else was in the house. I said no. He asked me if I was sure. I told him I lived alone. He looked at the house for a moment. Then he looked at me. He said, "Is there a reason 2 rooms started at the same time?" I said I didn't know. He said, "Did you see anything? Anyone inside before you got out?" I said, "I heard something." He didn't ask me what. He went back to his crew. I stood in the snow and I thought about the floorboard, the one outside the office, the one I'd heard after I'd already confirmed I was alone, the one that only announces itself going one direction, toward the office, because the grain of the wood catches a specific way. I had heard it going toward me. Whatever made that sound had been between me and the only exit, and I had gone out the window instead of toward it. Dale came back to me at 2:47 while his crew was still working. He said the fire had started in 4 locations, not 2. 4. Sitting room east corner, kitchen west wall, basement utility area, directly below the iron banister, and the attic above the back stairs. I heard myself say, "The attic." He said, "There's a stair access from the 2nd floor hallway. The hatch was open." I said, "That hatch is always closed. I keep it latched. It takes 2 presses to catch." He looked at me for a moment, not skeptically, in the way someone looks when a piece of information has confirmed something they were already thinking. He said, "The 4 points form a box around the staircase, both staircases." I understood what he was saying. The 4 fires formed a perimeter around every vertical path between floors. Both staircases, the basement below, the attic above, every way down, every way up, every exit that followed the structure of the house. The only way out had been the window. The only window I'd reached because a door I hadn't closed was closed when I found it, drawing me into the one room with the one exit that the perimeter hadn't covered. I stood in the snow, and I thought about the word drawing, and I thought about the footstep, and the open attic hatch, and the banister that was hot before the basement fire had any right to reach it. I want to stop here for a moment, because there's a version of this story where every single detail has a rational explanation. Old house, old wiring, old iron. The banister conducted heat up from a basement fire that started first, before Miriam woke. The smoke in the back stairs came from the kitchen fire finding its way through gaps in old construction. The hallway light was on the same circuit as the kitchen. It tripped when the fire reached it. 4 fires doesn't mean 4 simultaneous ignitions. It could mean one fire that traveled through wall cavities and emerged in 4 places before anyone saw it. That's the rational version. And Dale, who has 19 years of experience in this county, walked me through that version calmly and with complete seriousness. And then I asked him, if the fire traveled through the wall cavities, which direction did it travel from? He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "That's the part we couldn't establish." I asked him what that meant. He said, "It means we couldn't find a point of origin. We found 4 endpoints. We didn't find a start." I said, "What does that usually indicate?" He said, "Usually arson, someone who knew what they were doing." I said, "But no one was in the house." He said, "That's what the record shows." He didn't say anything after that, and I didn't push. There are things people who work in fire know that they don't say out loud, and you can feel the shape of those things in the silence around them. Miriam told me what happened next. 8 weeks later, Miriam is staying at a friend's house in Stowe. The coal house, what's left of it, is a foundation and char in the snow on Garfield Road. She told me about the night she went back. Not to the house, to the road in front of it. She drove out at noon on a Sunday, parked on the road, sat in the car, and looked at what was left. She sat there for 20 minutes. Then she got out. She stood at the edge of the property. The snow had preserved the yard exactly as it had been that night. Her footprints from the drop off the porch roof were still there. 8 weeks of cold had kept them. She could see the landing, the compression in the snow, both feet, the slight forward lean of someone who just dropped from height. She walked to her own footprints. She stood in them. She looked at what was beside them. Another set, not hers, coming from the direction of the house, from below where the window had been, and stopping beside hers. Not overlapping, beside, like something that had stood next to her in the yard that night while she watched the fire, while she was standing 3 feet away from her own burning house, in the snow, at 2:24 in the morning. She stood there. She looked at those prints. She looked at them for a long time. Then she walked back to the car. She drove 40 minutes back to Stowe without turning on the radio. She said the silence felt necessary, like something she owed. The insurance investigation closed last month. Cause undetermined. Full payout on the policy. The lot is hers to build on if she wants. She doesn't want. She listed it with an agent in Johnson. Vacant land, 7 acres, good road access, mountain views. The listing went up 2 weeks ago. She told me one other thing before she ended our conversation. She said that the week after the fire, she'd started going through whatever she'd managed to take out that night. Her phone, her coat, the boots she'd grabbed by muscle memory. In the coat pocket, with her phone, a book of matches. She said she didn't own matches. She used a lighter for the candles she kept in the house. She had never owned a book of matches. The matchbook was from a motel in Burlington, the kind they put out at the front desk. She had never stayed at that motel. Every match had been used. She put the matchbook in a bag, drove 3 blocks from her friend's house, put the bag in a dumpster. She said, "I don't know if it followed or if it let go." She said, "I don't know which one I'm more afraid of." I looked up the motel. The matchbook design Miriam described, burgundy cover, gold lettering, a specific font, matches a motel on Williston Road in Burlington that closed in 2019. The building was demolished in 2020. Before the demolition, the local paper ran a brief item about it. The motel had been vacant for several years before closing. The owner cited, among other reasons, structural damage from a fire in 2014. The fire in 2014 was listed as undetermined. I tried to find out if anyone had been in the building that night. The record said no. The record said the building was unoccupied. The record said all 4 quadrants of the structure burned simultaneously, and that the fire stopped at the property line, like it knew where it was allowed to go.